hard work being an MC, you know that. Okay, we've had a wonderful morning, and we're going to have one more presentation before we stop for lunch. I'm encouraging you at lunch today to perhaps have lunch here in the hospital. My goodness, have lunch in the hospital. Well, you know, this might be just that. But anyway, have lunch in the hotel together. That'll give you also more time to network. So without further ado, I'd like to bring forward Dr. Wilbert Smith, and he will give you a profound appreciation for his work. You have his bio in the packet, and somehow or another he believes that he has some familial relationship here. He's already proclaimed brothers and sisters. And so William, I just have to watch him, because if you're not careful, he'll show up at your house with his luggage. So I just want you to know that.
He's come home, brother.
So he's come home, just like Bill, he's home. And you know, I think we all feel that kind of comfort. So, but we're going to go forward with this presentation from Dr. Smith. And then we've also been joined by our colleague from Calvin College, Dr. Oula. And you'll have a chance to meet her in a little bit. Let me ask you, raise your hand, Chucky. There you go, okay. All right, and everyone knows that I'm still in the phonetic business of learning all the names, and I'm grateful for your kind of helping me work with that. So I'm going to move away from the podium and give it to Wilbert Smith. Thank you.
Good morning. Good afternoon, actually. My name is Wilbert Smith, and I have been really blessed to be part of a project, part of a story that I believe is not only mind-changing and life-changing, but a story that has a book that has been written. There is a high school curriculum that has been written around this same story, and also a feature documentary film. This film has actually been entered into the International Film Festival, and we were honored with the award of the Director's Choice Award for socially relevant content. So I am very thankful. Thank you. And it's a story that I think will definitely has a capacity to change lives, and it's life-changing by a 85-year-old man who just happens to be black. Now, one of the things that I would like to ask of you is the following question. If your brother, sister, or your mother happened to be gravely ill with something that resulted in some deformities, would you ever look away from that person? And I think the answer would be no. No matter how bad the affliction, no matter how poorly they looked, I think that the love that you have for that person would always prevail. It would always bleed through. And so when I show the film, I ask that you look at Vertus Hardeman's heart and not look at the unfortunate thing that happened to him. And once we do that, and you keep your mind on his heart, I think it makes it a little easier for you to see what he had to live through every day. And I guarantee you that when you watch this film, it will give you a totally different perspective, and it will even change your life. So with that, I'll come back after the film is over, and we'll have a brief discussion. I'm sure you might have some questions, and it would be my honor to address those for you. Okay.
One question.
Yes.
How long is the film? I'm not going to record it.
The film is 1 hour and 20 minutes long. 1 hour. It's a feature-length documentary. Okay. Story about being angry, or a story about something that it's not a witch hunt. What it really is, it's the best attempt that I can come up with trying to find something that happened that was negative and use it as a unifying and uniting way and forgiving way and understanding that we've got to all love each other. And I took a lot of caution in the book, which I have going around, contact their families, through the generations. The story had been lost, and many of them really didn't understand what had happened to their relatives. In fact, Garwood Hardiman was so interested in not having his children learn hatred that he fabricated a story and told their children that he was experimenting with a process. You guys remember you put process in your hair to straighten it? And he said he burned himself and told his children, and his children were now in their 50s and 60s, came to me after seeing this film and said they just had no idea. They never knew. Melvin Hardiman, who had never taken his wig off in front of anyone, his son is 62 and never knew. So it's an incredible family, and every opportunity that I gave to just hear Vertus say he was angry, or any of the men, it was, no, I gotta live with this, and I forgive the people who did it. Vertus once told me, he says, I always wonder, and I have dreams, that the person that did this to me actually went to the altar one day, the same altar that I go to, and had asked for forgiveness. And since I met this story, and he shared this with me in 2006, I haven't complained about one thing. I got 6 screws holding this shoulder together. Nobody knows it. It's happened since I learned that story from Vertus. Because by golly, I tell you, this is nothing compared to what I had and lived with. And I was fortunate enough to have the experience to be able to. Someone said to me, how did you look at his wound every day? I cleaned his wound twice a day for him. It was the easiest thing in the world for me to do. It was the easiest thing for me to do, because I said to myself, it's the least I could do. And if I could do anything over today, or I could wish that something were different, I just wish he could have seen this story. Because Vertus said to me things like, oh, Wilbert, no one's ever going to want to know about my story. That's because he lived it alone all his life. And guys, it's hard for me 5 years later. I'm about to cry. It's just that relationship was so magical. So what I'm doing now is I've developed a curriculum. There's a high school curriculum that actually accompanies the story. And there's the book and there's the film. And it's now available. I'm trying to offer it through the churches and see if there's any way that we can begin to touch and change lives. So any questions you may have, I would love to address them. Yes, ma'am.
My question is, my name is Joseline Alinda. I come from Uganda. My question is, the first day you saw the wounds, did you ever stop to ask yourself what kept him smiling? Because I've seen him through and through smiling. And I'm wondering how. Did you ever bother to ask?
I understand your question. I will tell you something even more amazing. Stand up. Your body's height. This is about, Vertus was maybe an inch taller.
Okay, I can't get it on the camera.
Oh. Maybe she, and I stood next to Vertus in the church choir every Sunday, and I looked right, every time I turned around, what did I have to see? The wig. I didn't see any gray hair, and he's 75 years old. It was a thick wig, as you saw, the one when he was wearing the blue suit. I had the nerve to say, Vertus, hey Vertus, why don't we put a little gray hair? And I got a friend who's a stylist. I got a friend who's a wig maker, which I actually know a person who makes wigs for cancer victims. I brought these things up to Vertus because I thought I could, and Vertus, in the nicest way he could, almost told me to go jump in the lake, So, but all this time, he never once said, I have a headache. Isn't that amazing? He never once said, I'm not feeling good. wow. So when he showed me what he was hiding all those years, I then began to say, why me? Why did he trust me? And so I just couldn't lay down. You know what I mean? I had to take that story and I had to make something of it. And so it's been, like I said, it's gone on, and I think we're finally there. And then I came across Brett, and Brett was, that story's true. He was house sitting for someone. And I knocked on the door and he answered and said he was a director. And I said, man, I have a story that I think you might be interested in. And so that plus one miracle after another has just continued to occur, where something happens when I have this little obstacle. I'll just say, Lord, if you can move it, Vertus, you know how to talk to God and make sure it gets moved. And somehow it just gets moved. Do you guys know how I got in the hospital? I had a crew. We were shooting the facade of the hospital. And I looked through the finder and I actually saw a light on. I knocked on the door. Somebody opened the door. And then the owner was in there, and I started sitting down talking to him. I said I was working on a story from California. I said I didn't tell him what I was working on. And I said I would love to have an opportunity to go in and simply, spend a little time in here, because it's about this man, and the hospital plays a big part in the story. And he says, sure, go ahead. That's how that relationship began. I could tell you when I was coming back on the airplane coming home, I was all of a sudden seated next to a writer who was on her way to California to do a book signing. So I gave a couple of moments about what my story was, because I didn't want to give too much, because you don't want to give the story away. And she says, are you telling me that this person has acquired millions of dollars in wealth? Yes. Is he 85 years old? I said, yes. She said, well, you don't have a story. She said, I'll tell you. She says, there are a lot of people that wish that they could live to be 85 and to be wealthy. Maybe we all need to go and get experimented on. And so I got home and I said, you know what? She's right. I need to change this story around. The story is really about Vertus and I, and our relationship, and how unique it was. And so that's how that came about. I could go on and on. There's about 8 or 9 other things that you would say, man, you're kidding me. I wanted Morgan Freeman. You guys all know who Morgan Freeman is, even in Uganda, right? You know Morgan Freeman, the actor, the black actor?
It looks like me.
Yeah, it looks just like you. There you go. Morgan Freeman was supposed to do my narrations. Morgan turned around, called, because his son, Alfonso, is my dear friend. And so Alfonso was going to arrange that, but Alfonso said, look, I have an agreement with my dad, and it is that I never ever bring work to my dad. He says, but I'm going to have Pops look at this, because this is something I've never seen anything like this. So I said, fine. So all of a sudden I get this conversation, the phone rings, it's Alfonso. He says, my dad's on the line with me. I just knew he was going to say, oh, I'll do this. And he says, look, I'm booked for the next 2.5 years, and I don't want to be this busy. And I understood it. Then I hung up the phone and I said, how in the world am I going to get to a voice? And in this country, there's really only 2 voices, you guys. There's James L. Jones and there's Dennis Haysbert, okay? And then all of a sudden, my phone rang at the office. And there was a man looking for somebody to notarize some documents for him. And he went up to the local store, because Dennis was raised in the area. He went to the local drugstore. The drugstore no longer notarizes, but they have my business cards there. So they refer people to my office. My phone rings, my cell phone. I'm on my way to pick up payroll. And my staff gave my cell phone number to this person. This person calls and he says, I need a notary. I said, well, I'll be back in the office about 30 minutes. I didn't know who I was talking to, you guys. So I had the nerve to say, and you gotta be there when I get back, because I got a dental appointment at 4 o'clock, so I got about a 10-minute window where I can do this for you. And so you know what happened, guys? I end up going back to the office. My staff says, did he call you? I said, who? They said, Dennis Haysbert. I said, that's who I was talking to? They said, yes. Dennis walked through my front door, and I said, man, I have been looking and thinking and dreaming about talking to you, and it just started about 2 weeks ago. He said, about what? He says, I passed your office. I went up there, they were out of your cards, they told me there was a farmer's guy across the street. No, I'm the spokesperson, national spokesperson for Allstate Insurance. So I said, no, I saw an Allstate agent as I was coming up the street. To make a long story short, you guys, that was a Thursday. Dennis called me Friday, he called me Saturday, called me Sunday because he had seen the film. I was in his private studio in his home that Tuesday laying the tracks to this film. That's how fast it happened. And it goes on and on and on. But anyway, a couple more, or one or two more questions. That I understand we have to eat lunch, right? Okay. Yes,
One does not live on bread alone. Thank you very much, Wilbur. One, who are you?
Oh, who am I? Okay. I'm not one who, yeah, I don't do a very good job of that.
You know why I'm asking?
Yes.
Thank you for the documentary, but it's you now who is important to me because you are living. How could you do this? How could you take in the United States of America, take in somebody and take responsibility? What motivates you?
Wow.
Who are you? Are you a human being like me?
Yeah, I am. I'm a person who is, look, I've done okay in my life. You know, I worked 29 years with B of A, and then I turned around, I've been with Allstate, I have my own business. I used to teach at Pasadena Community College in the School of Business. I'm that professor that when I had 3 or 4 black children, black kids in my class out of maybe 100, when I didn't see him, I got worried. And when I didn't see her, I got worried, and I would call him in the evening and say, hey, hang in there, you can do this. And then I realized that I can't keep doing that. So I have to figure out a way to reach the greatest number of people with the least amount of effort. So I ran for the school board in my community and was involved with Dr. Friedman, who was in the LA area at the time. Then I ran for state assembly, I ran for state senate, I ran for state superintendent of schools for the entire state of California, and almost won that race. I finished 3rd out of 14 candidates. But I realized at that point that perhaps that wasn't the best way to do it. And then in 2006, a few years later, after I got tired of politics or trying to figure out a way to make a difference, Virtus came along with this story. And I said, this is it. I am driven to give back. It means more to me now than anything else because I see what's happening to young black males primarily, and it bothers me big time, big time. So I'm gonna do a series of plays after this, and each one of those plays is gonna be designed to talk to us and take us back to the things that we once held dear. Moral issues, loving one another, taking care of one another. There used to be a time when, in the 50s, when we saw something on television, in the 60s, we said, oh, we hope they aren't black, because we're a little better than that, and what have you. So we've gotten away from that. My goal is to get us back there, and I think that I have the ability to do that. I think I have the intellect to do it. I've even written a screenplay on this story, and Dennis Haysbert has already said he wants to play the part of me. I'm looking at Don Cheadle, who did Hotel Rwanda, by the way. Don Cheadle to play the part of Virtus, and Morgan Freeman to play the part of Uncle Gletus, who was the one that I interviewed. I think we can do this. And my ego's not on the table, my personality is not on the table. I only want my leadership on the table. And if I continue to gain the credibility that I need, then it will happen. That's hopefully answering your question. That's who I am. You're quite welcome. You're quite welcome. Yes.
Okay, my main question has been answered. Like, what you're going to
You need to give her a
A
mic.
little louder, just a little.
You need to give
Do
her
I
a
need to get that microphone
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you want me to hear it on tape?
She has a nice smile, but a low voice.
Yes.
She doesn't okay, just smile.
I just said my main concern was answered. I just wanted to know what you are going to do with your story. But I just want this. I want to send this to my church. Like in Uganda, where people are struggling with bitterness, where families are broken every day, where kids are growing up. I'm a single mother. I've raised up my children for the last 18 years single-handedly. I know the bitterness. If someone was not a Christian, that would come out of that. I want this for my church. But can you reach more of those areas where people need to learn? Because unforgiveness is one of the hardest things to deal with, that it holds us back, and the devil knows it and he uses it.
Yes.
So could you reach churches? I need one for my church, please.
Oh, yes, yes. The film is available, but I didn't bring supplies. You have to go online to order it. And it's at holeinthehead.com. holeinthehead.com.
What we'll do is we'll take a list of those here who are interested, and we'll just, I'm sorry.
What we'll do is we'll take the names of those who are interested, and particularly if you're out of country, and try to get it before you leave, okay? So Betty and I will facilitate that and make sure that everyone who's interested is able to procure a copy of the film.
And then I've already told the speaker that I will be coming to Uganda. I visit you too?
Yeah.
Okay. He's going to be responsible for my itinerary, so yeah. I look. I don't know what I don't know anything. I'm going to be in a foreign land.
No, there is a problem that is responsible for it.
Yeah, we will not be
never
able to get to
see
you.
Oh, you know?
What did that say?
It's very quiet. You can't.
I moved away from that.
The Bible says, never answer in anger.
Well, I will be there. In fact, I'm coming with Betty, so that's going to be in January.
They're both.
No.
Oh, that's the same problem, huh? Well, then you're just going to have to.
So maybe partner,
Okay, yeah,
maybe partner should be the neutral one. We can host him, and everybody can.
Okay, that's right now, so
Yeah.
this is growing.
Love it, love it, love it. Any other questions, you guys?
And you bet to make sure
Is
you
it
bring him to our church.
Oh
no, Mr.
I'm Pasadena, California, right outside of Los Angeles.
He's in St.
Oh, okay, great. I have taken this to one university only. I have requests from 38 schools, but I selected one because I needed to see what it would be like. And we, on a Thursday night, did a screening, and at that screening were 1,200 people on a Thursday night in cold weather. And the question and answer period went for over an hour afterwards. What I took away from that was a young man who was in a wheelchair. He was 23 years old. And I had done a series of lectures throughout the day. They had me talk to the diversity classes, the humanities courses, different disciplines on campus. And this young man was present. And he came back that night pushing this other young man in a wheelchair. So at the end, when everybody had left, the young man in the wheelchair came up near the stage, and I knelt down next to him, brought me down to his level. He said to me, I had thought about taking my life. And after seeing Mr. Hardiman and what he went through, I know now that I can make it. I know that I can do it. It was then that I really realized that I was doing the right thing.
Amen.
I was doing the right thing. And, you know, the whole time after Vertus passed away, he passed away June 1st, 2007. I didn't bury him until I finished that book about 4 months ago. He lived with me all that time. I was constantly telling his story and interacting with him through my subconscious mind. It's just amazing. And then when I finished that is when I buried him. That's when I started crying. I couldn't stop crying. I called a good friend of mine. I said, I've been in tears. I'm in tears more today, you guys, than I've been in a long time about this. So I was really thinking, as when Bertus says that part where he says, if I could not have done this without you, and he starts crying, that's the part that gets me every single time. So anyway, I thank you so much for having me, and this has been wonderful, a wonderful experience. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Some of you have been asking what this conference was about. And for the most part, we talked about business and the like. Some of you got my card and on it is written Nebster. And you've wondered what Nebster is. I want to thank you, Wilbert, for taking interest in this story and telling it to us. I think it's very relevant to us from northern Uganda. I've survived 3 wars. I have survived death. When the rebels attacked our town, when I was very young, when the rebels put a machete on my neck and I passed out, I thought I was dead. Thank God I'm still alive. And I dropped out of school. I watched my dad being tortured. I witnessed so many atrocities. The speaker and I and some other people here come from northern Uganda, where there's been a lot of atrocities committed by both government and the rebels. And there's bitterness. And in my school, Nebster, Nebi Standard Academy, is a school that is giving second chance education to some of the students whose parents were killed during the war, chopped into pieces in their presence. Maurice is one of those kids. And the only thing that he needs is an education. There is bitterness in this school. And so I want to invite you to come talk to these guys. These are the orphans in my school. They've never had any psychosocial or psycho. They've never gone through any counseling. The only thing that has kept them has been their faith in God. The same with me. And that's why I do what I do now. I hope, and I still hope, that you know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who can come and hold my hands. Come help me. Help these students not be bitter. Why I started a sponsorship program was a boy called William. When I went to the school and I asked him what he wanted to be, William said he wanted to be a terrorist. I didn't know why. I couldn't take it. I came back. I said, William, why would you want to be a terrorist? He said, because they killed my parents and I want revenge. I couldn't take it. Came back a third time and said, William, tell me, what is it that would stop you from becoming a terrorist? He said, education. Came back and told my friend. I said, help me, I don't have the money. And he said, I will sponsor him. When I was in Parliament, I used my money to put this structure. I don't have a house for myself, but I figured if I put this house for the student, I'll keep out potential terrorists from harming us. Would you join me and make this dream come through? I'm no longer in Parliament, I don't have the money. All my salary I put here, I pay the teachers from my pocket. Even this conference, I spent over $5,000 that I don't have. But I believe it's worth it. I believe it is worth it. I was so touched that Vardis was not angry. I was angry. I was angry after the war. I wanted to kill somebody. I even asked for a gun from one soldier, and I was going to shoot him. I have a gift for you. Open.
The teeth may smile, but the heart does not forget. Murder in Memory in Uganda by Andrew Rice. I will read it. Thank you. Only if you put on here to me from you will I read this. If you don't do that, I'm not gonna read it.
Got it.
He'll read it. We have, I'm going to, Secretary.
This meeting keeps changing its nature every minute. And that is what is so inspiring about it. You come in thinking about something else, you stay 5 minutes thinking something has changed, then it continues changing like that. This morning has certainly been something else. And your story has been the most compelling to me. You know, we have all been under very tight situations. And if we chose to tell our stories, maybe things would be a little different. But many people choose to keep quiet about a lot of bad things that happen. And like some man said, evil triumphs because the good people refuse to talk about it. But I'm glad you did. I'm also glad to hear from my sister, the Honorable Dr. Udongo, sharing. In the northern Uganda, we have been through very difficult situations. Two weeks ago, the 14th of this month. Is that 2 weeks? Not 2 weeks, yeah. They launched Invisible Children film called Kony 2012. Many of you call him Kony 2012, but it's called Kony in my language. It comes from the constituency I represent in Parliament, and I know him. Many people think he's some ghost or something like that. But I'll pick two things from this last interaction, and I want to share. When Betty talked about revenge, I've been in that situation myself. In my house, I have 2 guns. I have a big Chinese shotgun, pump action, which can take all of you in a short time, if I wanted to. I have a gun, handgun, 9mm. I keep them both. But I read a poem by a guy called Taha Muhammad Ali. A poem I want to share with you. Taha Muhammad Ali. He wrote, and his poem is called Revenge. I want to share it with you. This is what he said. Revenge. At times I wish I could meet in a duel the man who killed my father and raised our home, expelling me into a narrow country, and if he killed me, I would rest at last. And if I were ready, I would take my revenge. But if it came to light, when my rival appeared, that he had a mother waiting for him, or a father would put his right hand over his chest, his heart's place, in his chest, wherever his son was laid, even by just a quarter of an hour, for meeting the outset, then I would not kill him, even if I could. Likewise, I would not murder him if it were soon made clear that he had a brother or a sister who loved him and constantly longed to see him, or if he had a wife to greet him and children who couldn't bear his absence and who his parents thrilled. Or if he had friends or companions, neighbors he knew, or allies from prison or hospital room, or classmates from his school, asking about him and sending him regards. But if it turned out to be on his own, cut off like a branch of tree, without mother or father, with neither brother nor sister, wifeless without a child, and without kin or neighbors or friends, colleagues or companions, then I would add not a thing to his pain. Within that aloneness, nor the torment of death, and not the sorrow of passing away. Instead, I would be content to ignore him when I passed him by on the street. I had convinced myself that paying him no attention in itself was a kind of revenge. This is poetry from Taha Muhammad Ali. The story you've just told me this afternoon reminds me of a story of a little boy. The little boy lit 4 candles in the room. I'm sure some of you have heard this story. The candles were burning quietly, playing with the wind, and you could think they were talking. But then the first candle said, I don't see a purpose living here. The air is tight. I can't survive. So the first candle decided to go out. So a little wind blew and it went out. The first candle, the boy had called it peace. The candle of peace goes out of our lives. We all know what happens. But that was for the boy, a mere candle in the room. But the repercussion in the world is bigger. Then the second candle said, in the absence of peace, what business do I have in this place, burning and lighting? It also said, I will go out. A little wind came also. That candle went. That second candle, the boy had called it love. Peace is out. Love is out. So you have parents against children, children against parents, neighbors against neighbors, and war. To the little boy, it was just a simple candle that went out. But what about the world? If you take out the candle of love, it stops burning. What happens? Well, 2 candles were still burning. And the 3rd candle said, well, there's no peace, there's no love. I am out. I have no purpose. It also went out. The boy had called the 3rd candle, faith. When peace goes, when love goes, all you're left with is faith. Candle of faith goes, you have nothing. We start even challenging, we start questioning the very foundation of our faith. The God we believe in whose name we were baptized, and in whose purpose we live. With that, we start questioning that foundation of that faith because of the things that challenge us. So when the candle of faith went, 3 candles were out, not burning. The little boy ran back in. Dark room, 4 candles, he had lit. Their bells in the room was beautiful. When he walked in, 3 candles were out. He started crying. So I put you on to light. I wanted light. Why are you all out? He started to cry. Then the 4th candle whispered to him. Said, young man, don't cry. For as long as I'm burning, you can pick me and light all the others, because I am hope. So the candle of hope remains burning. Hopeless is the worst situation we can come in. The story you have just told carries that message strongly, that with hope, everything is still possible. So together, I guess, we could hold our hands together, hold that candle of hope. Let's light faith. Let's light love. And let's light peace in the world. Nothing could be more profound than the story you have just told us. And I go back to Uganda. If there's nothing else I'll take from here, that will be my story. You made my trip worth it. And I'm so glad you have given me a copy. I'm going to watch it again and see what comes out of it. I would like to share this with the Prime Minister of Kenya. He told us a story. We were there we have the prayer fellowship going through parliaments and countries in Africa now. And we meet once a year in every country doing this. In Uganda, it's on the 8th of October. Every year we do that. National Prayer Breakfast. In Kenya, it's the last week of May. Every year, we go over and sit with them and pray. Together, the whole country prays. So Raila, who is now the Prime Minister and is running for president, this year too. When he'd been arrested by President Moi then, kept in prison, tortured. Every cold day, he has a bad headache. His legs have never recovered from the torture. So he ran against Moi, and he claimed his elections were cheated. So a group of religious people, Christian people, called him together and said, no, don't nurture anger. It will eat you up. So they arranged for him a trip to go down to South Africa. When he went to South Africa, he went to Robben Island. and visited Nelson Mandela's prison. We had been captive for 27 years. When Raila came back to Kenya, he withdrew a case he had filed in the Constitutional Court challenging the elections. And then he went over to Moi and said, you know what? Mandela was in prison for 27 years. He's come out, he's not angry. I was in prison, you imprisoned me only for 7 years. Why should I be angry? I wonder what he would say if he saw this film. I'm surely going to show it to him. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Statement to me, if not the last word. I am so overwhelmed with an attitude of not only gratitude but appreciation for the kind of human spirit that has edified this gathering. And I know too that as each of us walk about and go wherever else we might go beyond today, we will take that, because the greatest gift is the gift of love and compassion. The greatest gift is God's love for us. And the one thing that we all heard Verda say, that God was merciful. And so what he took away from here was God's love and mercy in abundance. And I also don't complain. I was in Gulu as well and visited a school, and I shall be brief. We were to spend the night in that school. I think during my visit, I visited and sat with more than 10,000 girls. My mission was to talk about the education of the girl child, and we laid a cornerstone for the creation of a school for girls in science and engineering. But for some reason, I was moved away by a member of the Department of State and said we must go back to Kampala. I didn't stay that night. The next morning, I learned that there was an attack on that school. I would have been asleep in the bed in that school with those girls, and many of those girls were murdered. I would have been there. And so we all know that everything about who we are and what we do is very divine. Our appointments are divine. It is in divine order, and it's not of us. And so I'm appreciating everything I'm feeling and the spirit that moves through this meeting. I also need you to know that every presentation during these 2 days was intentioned. There was nothing superfluous, and there were no accidents. Every presentation, every word, including the poem Revenge, and the story about the 4 candles,